Hello, everybody. This is going to be a short video with an update about the case of State of Florida versus Charles Adelson. Mr. Adelson has hired a guy that I consider a friend, Michael Ufferman, as the appellate lawyer who handled his appeal. Michael Ufferman is a very good lawyer, very experienced lawyer who handles only criminal defense and post-conviction cases. I know him personally. He used to be my neighbor. In the same building. He's in the same complex here where I work, where my office is. I played soccer with him before. He doesn't play as often as I do, but I've seen him before on the soccer fields. And he's very, very experienced. He has worked for the Florida Supreme Court when he started his career. And then after that, he devoted his entire career to doing criminal defense work at the appellate level. So post-conviction motions and appeals. So he's an excellent choice. I've actually shown his oral arguments from other cases before. He was the attorney, for example, who represented Dr. Adam Fresh in his appeal. So I covered that appeal and I showed the oral argument in which, of course, in the end, the appeal was lost. But we can assure you that with Michael Ufferman at the helm, if there are any appellate issues, he'll find them and he'll argue them at the First District Court of Appeals. So the way that the appeal works is the notice of appeal is filed. This was filed on December 31st, so the last day of the year. Here's a copy of the notice of appeal. And that starts the process at the First District Court of Appeals, which is the court that is going to hear the appeal. That court is also located here in Tallahassee, Florida. So the next thing that's going to happen is that the record on appeal is going to be prepared. Once the record on appeal is prepared and sent to the appellate court, then the parties have some time to prepare and file the initial briefs. In a case like this one, it is very likely that there will also be an oral argument before the First District Court of Appeals. And of course, I'm going to cover all of that. I'm going to check out the docket often, and I'll see when a brief is filed, and I'll discuss what arguments, if any, are made on the appeal by Mr. Ufferman. Again, very good guy, very good lawyer, a good pick. He's a Tallahassee guy, but really he practices all over the state of Florida. He's a very much sought-after attorney for high-level clients and for anybody, really. Anybody who has Michael Ufferman as an attorney can consider himself or herself quite lucky. He's really good and talented in this area of the law. And he's actually board certified. Let me see if I can share his. Well, actually, I put the photo on the thumbnail so you guys can just check it there. The other news I wanted to share with you guys is I did a video regarding the coincidences that surround the murder of Dan Markel around the date of Halloween. We heard the testimony from Katherine Magbanua about the fact that on Halloween of 2013, that was the first day that was the first date that Charles Adelson approached her about the issue, about the possibility of hiring somebody or finding somebody who could injure Dan Markel. So that was October 31st of 2013, Halloween. So when I heard that testimony, that rang some bells in my head because I had reenacted the deposition of Wendy Adelson. And a lot of people laughed about the fact that, well, not laughed, but criticized me for reenacting the deposition of Wendy Adelson and kind of having some fun in the process. I hired an actress. I did some ridiculous accents to just keep myself awake because I'm reading a divorce deposition. So I was trying to have some fun with it. And of course, this is a murder case, and I have deep respect for that and for the family of the victim. And I'm pretty good friends, I think, by now with Ruth and Phil. We actually had lunch with Ruth during the last trial. But in any case, so that reminded me of something that happened in Halloween back in 2012 in the deposition when Adelson is asked specific questions about an incident that involved Dan Markel and Wendy. in which they had a row, a fight. They had a big argument because, in a sense, Dan Markel had promised his kids that he was going to see them at the party later that evening. Wendy had RSVP'd to the same party. There were plans between the divorcing couple that both parents were going to be at the same party, so that Dan Markel, who was about to leave the country the next day, I think, he was going to go to Canada, that he would get to spend more time with the kids on Halloween and enjoy this joyous event with the customs and trick-or-treating and all that stuff. So Wendy decided not to go at the last second, and she justified this because of many people, but in particular, I think on that day, one person telling her some things that Dan Markel had been saying about her. So that caused her not to go to the party, and that caused Dan Markel to feel very upset, and that caused an argument between them. So Halloween 2012 was a big argument during the divorce between Dan Markel and Wendy, something that got him so upset about that there were a lot of questions asked about that issue at the deposition that was taken of Wendy Adelson during the divorce. The next year, then we find out, so on Halloween of 2013, 1 year later, Charles Adelson approaches Katherine Magbanua and asks her, do you know somebody that can harm somebody? So that's again Halloween 2013. And then I went back now and I took a look at the docket of the divorce case. And what I found out is that on top of that, one additional coincidence, if we're going to call it that, right, hasn't been proven yet to be of evidentiary value, but I think it is circumstantial type evidence that could be considered overall. So what happened was that on Halloween of 2013, the same day when later that night, Katherine Magbanua is approached by Charles Adelson and is asked about harming somebody, obviously regarding, I think it's the inception of the plot to murder Dan Markel. What we find out is that on the very same day, surprisingly, right, on the very same day, and on Halloween of 2013, 1 year after this fight that made both of them upset, that's when Wendy Adelson filed her motion to enforce marital settlement agreement and to show cause why the former husband should not be held in contempt of court. So she herself was being pretty aggressive in post-divorce litigation, and she was the one who filed this motion exactly on Halloween. And so you can see, I'm going to show you the date. Here we go. Here's the attorney who testified at trial, and you see the date, October 31st, 2013, right? And they're trying to get attorney's fees. They're trying to hold him in contempt. They're trying to make him immediately pay $10,000 to the former wife's attorney, and they're trying to enforce a marital settlement agreement and require the former husband to immediately transfer to the former wife the remaining amount due to her pursuant to the marital settlement agreement, which you may recall, this also started the litigation where Dan Markel filed his own motion counter-arguing that the reason why he didn't pay for that amount that was owed under the marital settlement agreement was because Wendy Adelson had failed to disclose one of the accounts, which I think the argument was from Wendy's perspective is that this was not a marital asset. And from Dan Markel's perspective, the argument was this was a marital asset, and therefore that's why she should have disclosed that, and it should have been considered in evaluating how to distribute the assets accumulated by the couple during their marriage. So that's the news. Notice of appeal filed. Michael Offerman hired as the attorney for Charles Adelson. Like I said, he's a friend. I play soccer with him rarely because he doesn't play soccer that often, but he's actually pretty talented, and he's a very good lawyer. I'm in good talking terms with him. He used to be my neighbor. Actually, he lives in the same neighborhood or right next to my neighborhood. So I actually, on the way home, I very often see Michael and his wife, who actually herself, I think, still works at the Florida Supreme Court. Like they like to go for walks around the neighborhood. So very good lawyer, good pick. And so we'll see what's going to happen. We'll see what kind of arguments he's going to be able to come up with on appeal. There's going to be obviously some arguments that we all expect. The most likely one to be raised would be the issue of venue, of the change of venue, because you see that in the post conviction telephone calls, that's something that upset Charles the most, right? The fact that he doesn't believe that he couldn't get a fair shake in Tallahassee, Florida. I have some questions about whether that issue was properly preserved for appeal. So that is one of the issues that Michael Offerman will likely be looking into. He's going to look at the record that was created. Remember, there was a motion that was filed, was oral motion to change the venue that was done at the conclusion of jury selection, or towards the conclusion of jury selection. I don't believe that it was renewed when the jury was finally picked, which is the reason why I'm not sure that it was properly preserved. But I haven't done a deep research on that issue. That is something that certainly Michael Offerman will be looking into as a possible issue to raise an appeal. For the most part, I think that Judge Everett did an excellent job in his rulings. I didn't see anything major happening, no motions for mistrial that I can remember during the trial, no major issues or misconduct, let's say, from the prosecution, making some arguments that caused a lot of fervor on the defense table. So I thought it was a pretty clean trial. And obviously, it's hard to know exactly what appellate issues will be raised because we're not privy to the conversations during the sidebars. And so the process is going to take a little while. The transcripts have to be fully prepared. The appellate attorney has to have an opportunity to review all of it and file an initial brief in which they will state what are the issues on appeal, and then they will present argument in favor of each of the issues. So again, I'm going to keep track of what's going on. And I'm actually taking the day off today. I just came to the office for a little visit and to do this quick video for you guys. So I'm apologizing to you. I know that you're all here on the chat, and I'm going to ignore you because I got to get going back home because it's an official day off for me. But we do have a lot more material coming your way. Before she went on vacation, Ladybug actually prepared several videos. So I may set up one more for premiere later this evening as I'm here now, and then I'll go back home. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful 2024. A very, very happy new year. If you guys have any questions about the appeal, about the attorney, or anything like that, I would appreciate it if you would just put it in the real comments to the video. I will check those comments later. Boa noite. Obrigado. So happy new year, everybody. Until next time, Mental Lawyer. And unfortunately, no sports for me today, but I'll get to play at home with the kids. Bye-bye. Have a new year. Happy New Year.